ever have a question about your cunt that you were too embarrassed to pose? Like, if I don't have sex for the next 8 years, will my pussy hole close? Well, buckle up, school's in session. These sex pros have planned a lesson, 'cause cunts aren't just for reproduction. Whether you were born with it or it's under construction, open your ears, 'cause the Clam Jam's got you covered. The Clam Jam.
Hello and welcome to the Clam Jam. I'm Vienna, the consultant, your host as always. Here on the Clam Jam, we have a live discussion with some kind of other consultant, someone who has vagina-related knowledge or adjacent. It's live, so if things get weird, for example, if my dog barks because I've made the bold decision to have the dog in the room with me, that'll happen, and then I'll remove the dog. But we are live. I am very excited for today's guest. I'm always excited for our guests, but I'm very excited for this one. We are joined today by Ashley Manta, who is the Cannasexual, and just a fabulous person who is both a hero of mine, an inspiration of mine, also a good friend of mine. I had the real luck of I remember learning about Ashley many years ago now through one of her blog posts she did. I think it was about we'll talk about it. She's gonna be here, sexual assault, all these things. So I remember reading her things years ago, being so excited, wow, this person's so inspirational, so amazing. And then I met her at Catalyst Con, and she was fabulous. Catalyst Con, if you don't know, is the sex positive community educators conference. I don't think it's definitely not happening right now. I don't know what happened to it, but this was back in maybe 2014, I think. And I met Ashley, and Ashley was in this amazing corset and had just done this event, and I just had a fangirl moment, and then somehow we became friends. So that's my little spiel about Ashley. I will say she is the last event I attended pre-pandemic. So bringing her on, welcome Ashley.
Hi, Vienna. Oh my God, that intro song is the best thing I've ever fucking heard. What a gem.
Yeah, fills me with joy. A woman named Eileen Hanley made it. She's great.
Cheers to Eileen. That's genius.
Yes. So as I was saying, we were just talking about this, but the last event I attended pre-pandemic was at your house, where we're doing for a documentary, and also did a little bit of Bodysex, which I'd love to talk about. And so I wore these earrings on for the last event I saw you at, so I brought them again. And they're actually, my partner made these for me. They're tiny vibrators. They're keychains. And I don't know if you can see that, but they
work.
Yeah, there's no way to show you that, but you can kind of hear it. So that's fun. So Ashley, I had you on for many reasons. You do all kinds of things, but you are one of my favorite sex educators, and I've learned so much from you. And today I did specifically want to talk about sex beyond penis and vagina, because we know it's part of the classics, penis and vagina sex, but there's so much more you can do. But you do all kinds of things with sex beyond just here's how to do it. Will you tell the people a little bit about your fabulous self and all the things you do in the world?
Well, thank you very much, Vienna. I really appreciate you having me here. You know, I fucking adore you. And I was so happy to have you at my event in February of last year. So to everyone who's meeting me for the first time, I'm a sex and relationship coach. I created Cannasexual back in roughly 2014, 2015, right around the time that Vienna and I were coming across each other. I've been a sex educator since 2007, and I focused on trauma-informed sex education, sexual violence prevention, victim advocacy. And that's really good, but very heavy burnout work. And so I started pivoting to the more pleasurable side. I worked at Planned Parenthood, and then I worked at a bunch of sex shops, and I was a phone sex operator and did all the fun things. And then cannabis changed my life by allowing me to have pain-free penetration. And that's when Cannasexual was born. And since then, it's become this kind of global phenomenon that I never expected to happen. And I'm still kind of blown away by it. I also, as you mentioned, am a Bodysex Facilitator. I studied with the legendary pleasure positive feminist Betty Dodson, who just passed away in October. And She's such a powerhouse. And your earrings are so apropos because she really made the magic wand famous. And and so I'm grateful to get to carry on her legacy. And so I work with clients through Zoom. I have clients all over the country and actually all over the world now, which is kind of wild. And then I also speak at events, colleges and sex shops, mostly virtually since the pandemic started. And then I do retreats. And so I have those coming up in Jamaica in the fall. And I always forget this. I wrote a book.
You did write a book, and I can see it, but it's not in front of me. Yes. And it's a pretty book.
Thank you. It's called the CBD Solution Sex. I can take zero credit for how pretty the book is, but I did write it. So
you can take some credit.
I did tell the art staff that I wanted to make sure that the photos were not gendered or heteronormative, and they did a fantastic job with that. So speaking of non-gendered and non-heteronormative sex stuff.
Yeah. So like there's so many things I want to talk. I mean, like, I've been to your blowjob classes, your hand job classes. I've been an active participant. And so something in like my line of work, right? Like with fertility awareness teaching, and like if people want to use that method for birth control, right? If you're using fertility awareness for your birth control and you're having sex with someone with sperm, there's a certain window in which, like, if you're mixing said sperm and cervical mucus, you're going to end up with a pregnancy you don't want. So people get weird about that, especially the heterosexuals, right? It's like, I can't have penis and vagina sex. What am I going to do? My sex life is ruined. Oh my God. And for everyone, but especially for that population, thinking of my clients, it's like, okay, like everyone take a big deep breath. Remember how you used to do other things before like just like putting it in? Like you can do other things. Sex is not just penetrative penis and vagina. There's other things that can be done there. And you're just so great at talking about those topics. So let's start there. But like also you do the sex and the magic, and you do the energetic sex. And that's a thing that people maybe don't know enough about. But I'd love for you to share as well.
And we will get into sex magic. I'm so into that. But as a more kind of intro primer, let's start with making out and hand sex.
My
These
first
two things, they get so overlooked, I've found. We get kind of caught up in this very linear trajectory of what sex is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to mostly take place. And I think we forget about these like really yummy early things. I mean, we completely neglect hand sex altogether because it's just it's thought of as, the sad hand job, and I'm on a mission to change that. But even just making out, like I find couples, even myself, sometimes I get into the habit of like kiss, and then on to the next thing. And when you really slow down and say, you know what, let's just kind of do high school nostalgia. Let's say pants are staying on and we're just going to make out and like dry hump for the next 30 minutes, put some music on, maybe some high school jams, and light some candles and really just take it slow and connect with each other. And that can be so sexy to get you really revved up and feeling in your body and enjoying the weight of each other and the scent and the way your mouths feel against each other. Like, it's fucking hot and we just forget about it.
Yeah, it definitely gets pushed to the wayside, and we're like, oh, but there's other things we could do. I remember, I do have this memory of like when I first started to become sexually active, with this boy in high school, we would just be like making out and fooling around in the back of his car all the time. Like that was our main option. And he like at one point was like, he said, because we weren't having penetrative sex. We were not doing penis and vagina. And he said something at one point. He's like, I hope I never like stop doing this. Like, it's so good. Like he had this like very moment of like, we should always do like he didn't say it that way, but like we should always do like hand sex and like making out and rolling around. And I agree.
Yeah, I consider less than half an hour to be a quickie. Like my lover B and I usually have sex for 45 minutes to an hour. We used to have sex for like 3 hours, but we're both getting older and his health isn't what it used to be. But it's really neat. And when I say we had sex for 3 hours, I don't mean he was thrusting in and out of me for 3 hours. I mean, we were naked and in bed. Sometimes we were making out. Sometimes we were just like exploring each other's bodies with fingertips. Sometimes we were doing oral. Sometimes we were just doing a straight up massage. Sometimes we were taking water breaks. Like it's okay to make it an ongoing experience that has multiple acts within the entire play. And hand sex, I think, is one of my favorite things to do that's not necessarily penis penetration oriented, because it's just so nourishing and like it revs you up so much if you give it a chance. Like oral, I think is fun and I like it, but it's, for me, it's not sustainable. My jaw gets really sore really quickly, and my hands can just go on in different positions and different like pressure and motions and angles. Like you can really do so much with your hands. And so there's so much creativity to be had, and you can follow your instincts a little bit, be like, okay, well, it's like playing an improv song on the piano. Like, oh, what happens if I do this? What if I like tickle these keys a little bit? What happens? And you're just like having fun with it, as opposed to just this kind of in and out motion of oral or penetration. So
yeah. So what are some tips you have for people to avoid the sad hand job for both, for all configurations of genitalia? I think when we think hand job, we think like penis, but you know, I would say if you're manually manipulating a vulva, it's also a hand job.
Could not agree more. And the first and most important ingredient to any hand job, regardless of genital configuration, is lube. I cannot emphasize this enough. Do not touch genitals with dry hands. It's not polite. It's just, Betty Dodson used to say, never touch a pussy with a dry hand, but I absolutely would extend that to penises as well. Like there's a really kind of unpleasant friction drag thing that can happen if you don't use lube. And so I really encourage everyone to do that and to feel comfortable doing that. And, you know, there's a lot of unrealistic expectations about how wet pussies are supposed to get when you're turned on, when in reality, as Emily Nagoski writes about in her book, Come As You Are, there's a phenomenon called arousal non-concordance, which basically means only 10% of the time, which is really a statistically insignificant number, are people's brains and genitals actually like aligned. So you can be really turned on and not wet. And that doesn't mean that you're not turned on. It just means that sometimes your body doesn't get wet, and that's okay. So lube is the great equalizer, and it's, you know, all over the head of the clit, the vaginal opening, and in between the labia, inside, like just get it all nice and slippery, because it's going to allow you to do more with your hands. So I would definitely start with lube for all genders and genital configurations.
Yeah, just even thinking of like a massage. Like you can have someone massage your shoulders without lube, or, you know, massage oil. And that's fine. It can be fine, but it is like much better when you can like slip across. And especially with like highly sensitive tissues, you know, you want to approach them with dignity.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you said that, because the next tip is pay attention to your hands. Are your nails trimmed and filed? Do you have calluses or you know, cuticles poking out? Make sure that your hands are nice and blunted and gentle for whatever genitals you're going to be playing with. And for the person receiving, if you want to, you know, landscape a little bit, you could do that. Totally optional. You don't have to. Some people like to just either take a shower beforehand or just a quick wipe, or go in totally sweaty, and that's cool too. Whatever feels most comfortable for you is okay. And then don't be afraid to deviate from the conventional. So what I mean by that is a lot of people focus on the clit, which is great, but they forget that the clit is not just this button right here. It actually, as I'm sure people who pay attention to you know, it has legs. And so there's your head, the head of your clit, and then it goes back into a shaft, and then splits down into these two legs, and then goes into these two chambers called vestibular bulbs that hug the vaginal opening. And this whole thing gets an erection just like penises do. And so if you're not like playing down the legs, which is kind of down between the inner and outer labia, you're really missing out on a lot of pleasure real estate. And you can massage inside the vagina, all around the sides, up behind, you know, where the G-spot is purported to be, which is really just the back of the clit, and get all kinds of in there if you know about the clit and the clitoral legs.
I've often said that like the vulva just exists to house the clitoris. like that's what you're seeing. You're seeing like the lips of the labia, but really just behind it's like clitoris everywhere.
Yeah, everything's coming up clit. Yeah. And if you are a Cannasexual follower, you know that I really love to put on some kind of arousal oil. So like this is Foria's Arousal Oil Awaken, which is a CBD oil that you apply to the vulva about 15 to 20 minutes before sexy fun times, all over. Let it marinate. Don't apply it like lube. This is for friction. Mm-hmm. This is for marinade.
Got it.
Friction, marinade. So use both. And while you are waiting for your pussy to marinate appropriately, you can, again, be doing other things. You could be making out. You could be stroking nipples. You could be giving massages. You could be rubbing your pelvises against each other. There's just so many juicy options.
It's so fun. See, like there's so much fun to be had.
Yes.
So the sad hand job for everybody, like learn some things about anatomy, learn like what your partner likes and is responding to. When it comes to hand jobs on a penis, do you have some hot tips for us?
I do. First and foremost, as you said, what your partner enjoys. So being able to communicate with them and say, do you like it better when I do this or that? Do you want it harder, faster, slower, deeper? All of those kinds of little tweaks. When your partner gives you feedback, they're giving you cheat codes to your body. And so that is really something that you should be appreciative of and grateful for and solicit and then be grateful whenever they give it to you. So penises. I have a lot of different moves. I think I have like 17 in my hand job course, but just go through a couple. This is called juicing the lemon. Mm-hmm. So you kind of make a cup with your hand and then go over the head. Again, so much lube, really, really important. I also like to take both hands. I like to use two hands for hand jobs. Like, let me just kind of say that to start with. So you're not like propping yourself up on one arm and jerking with the other. You're actually going to sit between your partner's legs, facing their belly, and arrange your legs however it's most comfortable. And then use two hands. And I like to take the top hand and twist in opposite directions. This is called the pepper grinder.
Classic.
Yes, one of my favorite moves. And then I like to take one hand, keep one hand on the shaft and take one hand behind the balls, and right where this kind of V shape is, put this right into their perineum and massage, because you can actually be indirectly stimulating the prostate that way. So that can feel really lovely. Like, really think about anytime you're touching genitals as just an extension of any other massage. So if you think about massaging your hand, you're not just stroking up and down your hand, right? Like, you're getting in there, you're like trying different angles, you're like getting all of the different muscles, you're pulling, you're getting in between. Like, that is how you want to approach genitals, because you never know where you're going to find a spot that you're like, oh yes, there, that's the one.
Yes, that's such a good way to think about it. Like, approach it like any other massage. Because I think people, you're maybe for whatever reason, right? Like, you like, oh, well, I've seen porn and this is what they do in porn, or like this was like a go-to move and I just kept doing it. But that like opens up all the creativity. And really what we're speaking to is like the creativity of sex. It's a creative act, right? And all different configurations of that sentence. But yeah, especially like, you can get creative with it. You can just touch each other differently, or, just explore with that.
Absolutely, you can. And toys are a great way to kind of change things up. I always like to think about toys as collaborators and co-conspirators, not competition. Yeah. So you can use strokers, you can use vibrators. And again, regardless of what kind of genital configuration you have, you can find a toy that works for your body. And then you can use that to get like different stimulation. So that way you could be kissing and have the toy on their genitals at the same time. So you don't have to be far away from them while you're doing it. Like, there's just so many ways that you can do it. And of course, one of my favorite toys is the Sybian, which you have gotten to see it at many parties that we've been to, which is like a rideable sex machine. It's like if you gave a vibrator a Harley motor, that would be the Sybian. And It can be used solo, or it can absolutely be used partnered, or, in orgies, depending on how ambitious you are. So if you're curious about that, be sure to hit me up. It is pricey, but it's an investment in your pleasure.
You should definitely, if that piques your interest, you should 100% reach out to Ashley, because the Sybian, I mean, if nothing else, it's an excellent party trick.
It really is.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so hands, like bring back the hand jobs, bring them in, massage each other's genitals, sexy massage, happy endings, all those things.
Yes.
So with the hands, toys, configurations there. What about mouths? Because we do talk about oral a lot. Oral is highly discussed. Hand jobs, not as much. Like, you're right. Like, hand jobs do get the sad rap, but oral is like, well, you better be doing it. Like, that's like,
I think the best oral also incorporates hands, personally. I know that there are people who think that it's a cool parlor trick to be able to do hands-free oral, but I think you're cheating yourself out of pleasure-giving tools if you're doing it hands-free. So if you happen to be playing with a vulva, I like to use one hand to spread the lips and the other to be manipulating with my fingers, either kind of around or in and out, while I am playing with the clit and licking up and down the labia. The thing is, everybody is different. And so different people like more of a sucking, some people like more of a licking, some people like, really intense pressure, some people like this kind of more feathery teasing touches. So it's really important to ask your partner what they like. And again, do this kind of eye doctor thing. Do you like it better when I do this or this? Like, at least in the beginning, because if you're somebody who's been doing oral or any kind of sex act the same way since you started doing them, you might want to update your techniques, because not everybody experiences pleasure the same ways. And that's not to say that you're bad or wrong, but you have opportunities to expand your horizons. And I think going to sex ed classes is something that everyone should consider doing, because no one teaches you how to do this stuff in high school. You just kind of figure it out and then hope for the best. And when it comes to penises, I really don't think that people who give blowjobs need to stress themselves out about gagging and gag reflexes and deep throating as much as we do. Most of the nerve endings of the penis are actually in the top little bit in the glands. So it being the whole way down your throat is not actually going to feel better for them. It might feel better like mentally from like a kink power perspective, but physiologically it doesn't feel any better. So don't stress yourself. You can use your hands and then just suck the top. Like, that's totally fine. Again, I like to play with the balls if the person's into it. I like to get behind the balls. I like to be stroking the base with plenty of lube and not just spit, as I am playing with the crown and running my tongue around and flicking the frenulum, which is the most sensitive part of the penis.
Yes. Well, so one of the things that keeps coming up, right, is have a conversation with your partner, especially if you're having solo sex, right? So you're having a conversation with yourself, but we're pretty much discussing some degree of partnered, be that two or more. What kind of tips do you have for people who are interested in having a more creative sex life? Maybe not doing something that's like in the like kinky realm, or like going somewhere that's potentially like even extreme in any way, but just like, now that you think of it, like, I might want to explore hand jobs again. How do you change up your sexual script? If you're like, okay, we've been in a relationship for 3 years, we always do X, Y, and Z. How do you start to shift those patterns?
That's such a great question. And I find that a really good icebreaker is us. If you say to your partner, hey, I was watching Vienna and some crazy chick with weed on the Clam Jam talking about sex, and they said some kind of interesting stuff, and I'm curious, would you be interested in trying it? That's a really low impact, low stress way of opening up the conversation. Like, blame us. And then if your partner's like, no, that's weird, you could be like, I know, right? Like, no, I'm kidding. If your partner thinks it's weird, maybe consider getting a new partner. No, I'm kidding. But really, like, it's a great way to start to kind of have the dialogue, because you're not saying that anything's wrong. You're not saying that, you're not criticizing them. You're just saying, hey, I have an idea. It's one of Reed Mahalko's signature phrases. I have an idea for how we can have even more pleasure. How does that sound? Like, who's going to say no to that?
It is such a good line, like to say, oh, would you like to have more pleasure? I have an idea about how we could have more pleasure. Like that is
right?
Solid opener.
Yeah, I'm about setting yourself up for success. And I'm also about setting your partner up for success. So if they're like, well, I don't know what to do, here's a great trick. You know how you masturbate, which means you play with yourself exactly the way that it feels fantastic. And you know how to get yourself off in the most efficient way possible. Maybe not the most pleasure-oriented way or the lengthiest way, but you definitely know how to be efficient. So be like, hey, partner, check this out. I'm going to show you what it looks like when I masturbate. Do you want to watch? Which any partner should also be like, I don't like to say should, but like they should be like, yes, show me, Yoda.
Yeah.
And then you can just model and be like, I really like this. Tell them what you like about it. Tell them what you're thinking about while you're doing it so that they can really kind of get a sense of what's going on in your head.
Great tips. Great tips. So let's see here. Oh, what popped in my head, and I want your thoughts on this. So something that I have told people in the past who are especially like, no more penis and vagina, is, well, sometimes like having boundaries and having limits actually can make things more exciting. So again, going back to like high school and nostalgia, if you were, or like at any time in your life, if you're like, I'm open to doing X, Y, and Z sexually, I'm not open to doing, A, B, C. Those are limitations. And I think once you you might have those limitations for all kinds of reasons when you're young. Like maybe they're social or religious, or maybe you're just not ready or you're freaked out, whatever it is. And then as you get older and you've like processed through it, you're like, well, I've done all the things now. You just are kind of like, well, it's normal for me as an adult to move through these phases. My question is like, boundaries, sexy?
Boundaries are so fucking sexy. Are you kidding me? I get turned on when somebody tells me what they're up for because it takes the guesswork out for me. I really appreciate clarity. I would always rather verify than guess. And so I really recommend, especially when couples come to me, the most frequent thing that I get from new couples is desire discrepancy, which is one person wants to have sex more frequently than the other. And so the first thing I do with almost every couple that I work with is I take penetrative sex off the table for 30 days. I'm like, that's not even an option, because a lot of the time, and this perspective was really informed by reading Peggy Klein-Plotz's book, Magnificent Sex, where she summarizes 15 years of research of interviewing people of all ages, genders, and orientations about what they consider magnificent sex, right? And she says that a lot of times the people who are coded and labeled as low desire are actually just really discerning because they're not enjoying the sex that they're having, and that's why they don't want it. And it's really understandable to not want sex that you don't enjoy. So when I take penetration off the table, I'm like, all right, let's get back to basics. Like we're talking about, let's get creative. Let's follow the pleasure and stop focusing on penetration and orgasm as the be all end all. And let's take the pressure of, oh my God, anytime you touch me, I have to rebuff you because you think that if I kiss you, that means we're going to fuck. And like, let's take that completely away so that we can get back to connecting again. And it has really done wonders for the couples I've worked with.
It is really powerful. Like it's like that, I've heard that in so many different instances of just like, okay, like penetration isn't an option. And in for everyone, right? Like even for some cases, I remember like Dan Savage calls where there's a man who's calling in and it's like, well, I can't get an erection on the first few times I'm with someone, or I can't get an erection at all. And so he's just like, you're just not doing penetrative sex. Just it's off the table. You tell your partner, you both communicate that. You're just like, we're not doing this. And then it also builds some tension. And tension is very sexy tension, right? That can be very fun as well.
Tension is very sexy. And also, I have empathy for the higher desire partners because I am the higher desire partner in my relationship. And so it is also okay to be disappointed that you're not having sex as often as you would like to, or for as long as you would like to. Like, it's okay. You get to be sad about that. You don't get to make your partner feel bad, but you can totally have whatever feelings come up, and you can negotiate. Like if you have a partner who just, whether it's chronic illness or depression or whatever valid reason, and there are thousands, of why they don't want to have sex as frequently as you do, even if the sex is enjoyable, then you get to start, negotiating for external ways of getting your needs met. Like, we're not saying that you have to join a convent just because your partner doesn't want to have sex with you. Like, start negotiating and see if there can be allowances and agreements around non-monogamy, perhaps, like, find a way to make it work.
Yeah. And then I think understanding, like, if there is a desire discrepancy, is it like, again, like, what kind of desire are we talking about? Is it like every time you initiate sex with me, I think we're going to end up like penetrative sex and I'm just not up for penetrative sex all the time? Is it like, we could cuddle and then that would like meet all of our needs, or maybe not all of them, but we would get enough needs met together that way. So having that conversation and exploring and in all kinds of ways, especially with people, I would say like the instances I hear this talked about the most is with chronic pain or postpartum. So you have an infant, you have a newborn, the mother, the primary parent can be like touched out, can be tapped out, just like is kind of over people engaging with their bodies because they need something from them. And, with chronic pain, like if we have certain kinds of sex, like it causes me pain in that instance, reframing it to be like, all right, well, I'm not up for that. I'm not up for like penetration. I'm up for perhaps some dry humping. And that's totally fine. You just have to have that conversation.
Yes, the conversation is everything, because you and your partner are not mind readers, and it's really helpful to be able to get clarity and direct information rather than letting whatever story is going on in your head run wild, because we as humans are always going to take everything super personally, assume worst case scenario, catastrophize that like, oh, you don't want me to kiss you because you're not attracted to me anymore and you're going to leave. Like, that's how quickly we jump out of control. So being able to say, right? Being able to say, hey, I'm noticing like a fear come up. Can I just run that by you? I could use some reassurance is also really helpful. Like, you have to say the thing out loud. And I know that it's hard and scary and that people don't teach you how to do that, but like, lean into it, because you're going to have such a stronger relationship than if you're just kind of shutting down and keeping your partner at bay and fighting as though you're adversaries. Like, you have to be on the same team.
Exactly. Well, we are doing a shorter clam jam today. So because we're both like, hello, we're tired. But so much important things to say. But before we wrap it up, I also want to like move briefly to like, what is sex when it's not physically touching each other? So again, like, sex is a lot of different things, and people experience sexual energy in all kinds of different ways. Like, again, creative energy, all this creative stuff. So can you tell us about energetic sex?
Absolutely, I can. So I identify as a witch as of the last several years, and
we were in a coven.
We were in a coven together. I was like, I'm not going to out Vienna unless she does. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yes, we were in a coven together. So we have practiced all sorts of like ritualistic awesomeness together. And for me, magic started with sex magic, and recognizing that like as a human and as a soul, I have all of this energy rippling through my body, both physical and metaphysical. And, it's awareness of chakras and what that means. And if you buy into that, and it's recognizing that you can take this energy and you can manipulate it for purposes of pleasure and intent and with intention. And so I have given Reiki hand jobs where I am not actually physically touching the person, but I have my hands kind of hovering above them and they're still on the ground flopping like a fish. I have had energetic pegging where like my hips with clothes on or pressed against my partner's hips with clothes on, and I am like thrusting into his ass and he's again shaking like a fish, and I can feel it and he can feel it, and it's just wild. And so there's like all of these kinds of ways I can make a cock grow out of both of my hands, out of my heart, out of my forehead, and like fuck you with all these different parts of me. And that's just energy. You can do anything you want with it. It's totally wild. And if you're listening to this and you're like, that is complete hogwash, that's cool. I'm not talking to you. If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that would explain so much, come play with us. It's really fun.
How would someone get started like practicing energetic sex? If they're curious, if they're like, yes, I need to know more.
Yes.
How would they learn some more?
So one is just a very simple experiment. It's take your hands and rub them together really fast for a couple minutes. We'll do it for shorter because the TV magic situation. So then you stop and then you just feel the energy that builds between your hands. And you can kind of like, if you can visualize it, pretend it's a golden orb, and can you make it a little bit bigger? And can you shrink it down a little bit? And can you make it a little bit bigger? And then you can start to feel it take shape. And then once you can isolate that and you can really start to discern the energy that's all around you, you can kind of put that energetic ball inside of you and feel, like a little sip of coffee, you know, like everything's a little brighter, a little lighter. And you can take that same concept and use it for pleasure. You can use it for cleansing. You can use it for healing. You can use it for orgasmic energy. And then you can take that energy, especially as you kind of build to climax, and you can use that to launch intentions. I want my dream job. I live in a place by the beach. I have friends who love and adore me. I have a career that fills me with joy. Whatever it is that you want to bring into the world, visualize it like it's already happening, and then send it out into the universe as you're coming. And I'll tell you what, it works. I made a lot of money last year, and I live by the beach, and I get fucked well and regularly. So if I can do it, you can do it.
Certainly can't hurt.
You know,
worth a try.
It's solid.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, briefly, those are like a few other options beyond. There's no penis and vagina. You know, even if you don't have a penis and vagina, if you have a penis and a penis, or vagina, and whatever else you call and identify your parts as, you know, think of it like a massage, if nothing else.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like, again, just sex is so many different things, and it gets boiled down to one particular thing often. This again is a thing that straight people, and I'm like, I'm bisexual, but I'm very heavily on the hetero side still too. You know, you get stuck. It's just like you get stuck in these ruts. I think everyone does probably, but you know, there is that again. Thank you to the queers for.
Thank you to the queers for making sex interesting. Yeah. For sure.
Keeping it interesting. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here. I forgot to say, like, I am wearing my Cardi B WAP shirt for this event.
Amazing.
Right, the whole time. But yes, so here's to better sex and diverse sex and creative sex and no more sad hand jobs of any variety. You are so fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. Where can people find you? Where can people learn more about you? You have all kinds of different opportunities for people to like get more. Ashley, how do they?
Thanks. So this was so much fun. I love getting to chat with you. First of all, you can find my podcast, which is called Elevated Intimacy, and that is available on all the podcast streaming services. You can find me on my website, cannasexual.com. If you are interested in coaching, check out elevatedrelationship.com. If you are interested in my sex magic online intensive, that's going to be starting toward the end of May. It is open to 10 women who identify as witches or think they might want to be. And it's going to be all about learning to love your pussy, understanding sex magic, energetic sex, plant medicine, really having a sisterhood of women who are there to support and celebrate all of you, including your pussy. And it's just such a powerful group. And you'll get to join the winter Activating Your Cosmic Pussy sisters who have, it's really kind of becoming almost a sorority without the college drama or drinking, but it's a really, really powerful group. And you can find that at mycosmicpussy.com. I'm also going to be hosting 2 retreats in Jamaica in the fall. I have a couples retreat that's going to be Halloween weekend. And I have a women's retreat that's going to be from the 1st to the 8th of November. And that's going to be kind of 7 days of my Activating Your Cosmic Pussy retreat, plus a lot more body empowerment and asking for what you want and fearlessly setting boundaries with ease kinds of work that we're going to be doing. And you can find that at coralcovewellness.com.
Amazing. Well, we will link to all those things below. Everyone, have a lovely evening. Have some great sex. Let us know how it goes. Ashley, thank you again so much. You're the best. I love you. It's always great to see your face. And with that, I'm gonna take us out with the Clam Jam outro. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Your cunt is special, there's so much to love. You and your pussy should fit like hand in glove. Whether it belongs to you or your lover, there is so much to discover. See you next time, the Clam Jam's got you covered.